everything you can do with it. Well, the good news is that we now have a full 30 minutes devoted to the topic, and with somebody from Akana. So I would like to introduce Laura Heritage, who is the Director of API Strategy, which makes me think she's going to talk about APIs from Akana. Laura?
All right, thank you. All right, thanks for coming to my session on Be the Disruptor, the API, the digital API value chain. 70% of the US population owns smartphones. The demographics is widespread. My 85-year-old grandparents sit in their, loungers playing on their iPhones and talking to me on Facebook and all of the social apps. 85 years old does this. My 2-year-old daughter, thank God, now plays with a smartphone, so we can go out to dinner and have a quiet dinner an evening for two. Right? That's the greatest, when an app actually entices your 2-year-old long enough till the dinner comes so that you can have a conversation with your husband. So that's great. There will be 150 billion connected devices by 2020. And I'm not talking smartphones and tablets and things like that. I'm talking where your dog food dispenser is going to be able to order its own dog food. I was just on the plane ride, stuck on the tarmac for 3.5 hours in Chicago, and was reading the latest American Way magazine, and there is going to be luggage that, just like your phone, have Find My Phone, it's going to have Find My Luggage. So when the airline loses your luggage, you can say, I can see it sitting, right in your warehouse in Chicago, okay? So digital is disrupting our physical world. Value chains that have stood for decades are going to be breaking down or have been broken down. How many here Uber today, right? A lot of people use Uber. And why do you use Uber? Because it's extremely convenient. You can see that there is a car a block away. You don't have to blindly look for a taxi and hope that one comes around the corner. You can pinpoint and see where it's at. You can negotiate a price, and you can pay without having to dig through your purse to get a credit card or something. You can do that so conveniently. And most often that car that shows up is going to be a nice car, right? It's not going to be your traditional old taxis. So value chains that have stood for decades are being completely disrupted. I spend most of my time working with large enterprises so that they can actually be the disruptor instead of being the disruptee. Some of the enterprises that I work with are fending off disruption as we speak. I'm going to talk about a couple of them. One is a large hotel chain. Okay, as you know, Airbnb is starting to disrupt that value chain. Okay, so the hotel chains have to look at their company, innovate, and start disrupting some of their value chains. For example, when you as a customer want to book a hotel room, forgetting about Airbnb right now, when you want to book a hotel room, you go to a travel site, you put in where you're going to go, and you get a bunch of hotel rooms back. You say you want to pay $100 for that hotel room. You book it through that travel site. That travel site gets to take a commission, let's say 15 to 20%. The actual hotel chain gets what's left over, the $85. Well, when they're being disrupted by Airbnb, they need to do some innovation, but they also need to be able to keep more revenue for themselves. So this hotel chain wants to say, you know what, I want customers to book more directly through me. And they're going to try to do this through APIs. Okay? Now, I'm going to put you on hold there for a second to figure out, well, how can an API do that? For just putting out an API, why would that help disrupt the value chain? How will customers find that API or the apps that are built with that? So I'm going to put you on hold for a couple minutes, and then we'll get into how that works. Another industry that's being disrupted is merchant payments. Akana works with several of the largest merchant payments companies in the United States. They are getting disrupted by things like Stripe and Square. What they have to do is modernize their current services. A lot of these companies their services were still SOAP or some esoteric format that they had to handhold each partner through integration. Partner onboarding took for I was going to say forever, but that's probably not a good word. Took a long time, about 3 months, where if you go with Stripe or Square, you can get onboarded in a matter of days. So that to improve that onboarding schedule in order to stop being disrupted. Finally, the last thing they had to take a look at is their existing business model around their services. New and innovative business models and how customers want to pay and how they want to interact with you are changing. Like I said, those traditional value chains that have stood for decades are beginning to crumble. Finally, one more example is a large automobile company. This is a very interesting example for me because they actually found a new value chain. Now, this particular automobile company services 65% of the cars in the United States. When they service the cars, they collect data, all sorts of data. And they can, within a certain reasonable margin, tell when your car is next going to, a certain part on your car is going to need to be serviced or fixed. Give it the make of the car, the year of the car, the location of where the car has been driven most, and I forgot the last one, but given those variables, they can tell when you're going to break down. This information is extremely valuable to insurance agents, right? To the car manufacturers to have parts on hand, and also to banking and loan. If you're going to buy used car loans and things like that, that information is incredibly valuable. So this automobile company is not really just in the business of fixing automobiles. They're in the business of gathering data about all of these cars and feeding it back into the ecosystem, creating a new value chain. So across all of these three examples, APIs are becoming key. And these APIs are extending out externally, either to partners or really to that true external application developer. In all of the large enterprises that I work with, they all realize, though, that that's just a small fraction of the digital transformation that they have to take hold. Most of the digital transformation that they have to occur in order to compete is going to be internally. And that's all I'm going to say about that in this presentation, because in this presentation we're going to focus on the external business model. But I didn't want you to walk away thinking that, oh, we just have to put an API out there and we're a digital company. No, a lot of the work and a lot of these large enterprises have done the work to transform internally so they can cause the disruption externally. So what does a value chain of an API look like? Let's go back to the hotel example. Okay? They said, we're going to put out an API, developers are going to build to my API, and we're going to get direct revenue. But why are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? The API product manager of the hotel chain understands the reasoning for why they're trying to attract the end user, right? They want direct revenue, right? They want that full $100. But why would that app developer build using that hotel chain's API? It's of no value to them, right? So then when discussing with this hotel chain, they said, okay, well, maybe we would give the developer a 3% commission for every hotel that is booked through their API. Now that entices the developer. That gives the developer an incentive. And it's still not the 15 to 20% that they were giving to each of the travel sites, okay? So hold on to that thought. So understanding the value chain. Here is a little chart I created in order to really see, okay, to the API provider, the asset that I'm going to put out externally, what value does it have to my company? So if I take a look at the automotive example, that automotive data is somewhat valuable to to the automotive company. If they externalize it, it doesn't cannibalize their business. But that data is extremely valuable to their partners. It can be extremely valuable to the insurance agents, extremely valuable to the car companies for the connected cars, extremely valuable to the manufacturers and supply chain, and then extremely valuable to the banks, right? That's something somebody would pay for, the developer or partner would pay for, right? So you mark it in that box. What's the value to the end user or the customer? Well, the value to them, to the partner's customers, right, are probably better service, better premiums, hopefully, not that they would raise our premiums, better better loan rates based on the models of cars, right? A better experience. And in a connected car, a better experience because they would know when to surface and go in for service. And for the API providers, they now have a new value chain and a new source of revenue for the automobile worker. All right. In all of this, these APIs are products. No matter if your API is given away for free, or your service, because your API exposes your service, or if you're charging for them, you need to treat it like a product. You need to have market analysis. You need to establish a team. You need to establish a business model around it, right? Even though it's free, it's related to the business. How does externalizing this API give value back to the business, okay? In order to do this, in order to establish a business model and treat it like a product, you need to establish a team, okay? This is extremely important. These are just sample roles that need to be fulfilled. A single person could fulfill multiple roles, but you need something in each one of these categories. You need an executive sponsorship. You need an API team, someone that can product manage the API, someone that can architect the API, someone that can actually develop the API and operate the API. This is a team around your particular API or service that's responsible as a product. One of the common groups that typically gets forgotten, especially if the API strategy is driven from a technical side of the house and not from the business side of the house, is the go-to-market team. You need developer advocates. You need digital marketing people that understand it, digital sales people that understand how to sell your service and your API. Most importantly is market segment. Remember back with Marriott, with a hotel chain, and where I said where you could give a 3% commission to the developer? Well, if a hotel room only costs $100 and you're given a 3% commission, that's like $3, right? What developer segment is going to be attracted to that particular commission? Well, in discussions with that, one particular group that would be very interested in is school fundraising. How many here have children and had to go through school fundraising? A lot of us. How many love it? How many love that time of year? I absolutely hate that time of year. I'm doing it for hockey, soccer, basketball, for the school itself, you name it. My kids are in a lot of traveling sports, so I travel during the week and I travel on the weekend. I tend to stay at the same hotel chain every place I go. I want to maximize my points because my time away is those points I can go on vacations. However, if a hotel chain would come to my school and says, you know what, build an app around my API. I'll give your school a 3% commission. If I was not staying at that hotel chain, I would switch. So not only would the hotel chain get the 3% commission that everybody's booking through the school's website, they would also start converting parents like me who travel in order to maximize their hotel room points. Now, a value of an asset changes over time. It might start out as free or it might start out as paid, and it'll eventually go to being free or go to being paid. Your asset, just like any other product or any other service on the market, will change over time. Your APIs will have more than one return on investment, mostly. For example, in the hotel chain example, you might get the commission, right, which is you might get the revenue of the direct booking, but you're also getting maybe conversions on rewards memberships. So you get two returns on investment there. But you also might get a return on investment because you're doing a community service, helping education and so forth. So there's all sorts of things that can happen around the return of investment on an API. Now there are three basic business models around an API. There's the free model, okay, where you're getting indirect revenue. There's where the developer gets paid. We discussed that with the hotel chain. And there's where the developer gets paid. where the developer pays. So I kind of fumbled up there. There's free, developer pays, and the developer gets paid. We're going to take a look at these. Each one of these can be broken down even further. Okay, so in the free direct model, indirect model, there are, I've broken out into 4. There's actually several more, but these are just 4 examples. There's content acquisition, where you're trying to get content syndication, where you're pushing content out, and then there's SaaS-based models, and there's social networking. So it's all about the content. Okay, if you take a look at why eBay puts out its APIs, they put out its API, it's free, so that they can get content, so that their catalog remains fresh, right? So people can easily load and change their catalog. When you take a look at someone like NPR, their model is around content syndication. They syndicate enough information about the news in order to drive people back to their websites where they get ad revenue. So it actually increases revenue on their websites. Same thing with New York Times with the content syndication, and Fitbit around the content acquisition, because they're trying to build that personal fitness platform, personal fitness space. Concur is an excellent example of content acquisition. Okay, they want to build the ultimate business expense experience, everywhere from before your trip takes off all the way to the final expense reports and everything in between. When you're riding in that Uber cab, when you're doing park and fly, when you're doing trip lingo, they've externalized their API, and they built this very, very pluggable framework so that they can have the content and aggregate all the content in order to give you that great, great experience, so they can put compliance on expenses and everything from one experience. And they wouldn't be able to do that today if they hadn't externalized their API and opened it up. Anybody can go and work with their APIs and plug in. It's all about the SaaS, okay? There's 2 models here. There is the SaaS model where you include the API. So you have an app, and I think everybody, we were on the panel earlier, everybody expects if you have a SaaS application, you have an API, okay? FreshBooks is an example where they said they found that if a customer used just one integration, that increased that increased their turnover rate to a paid subscriber by 3-fold, okay? The upsell model, this is a very popular model as well, okay? It is a way to get someone up to your next level of plan. Salesforce does this very effectively. And it's nice to have access to the Salesforce APIs. The developer's paid model. This model, these are just a small portion of how many breakouts can come down here in the different examples. New models are being created, and this is where innovation can occur. There's the pay-as-you-go. This is like Mo Greet. You can send SMSs, and you just pay as you use it. Very simple, basic model. We all understand it. The next one is a tiered model. It's based on volume. So if you've got 2,000 subscribers, then you're at this level. If you've got 50,000, you're in the middle tier. And if you've got the higher volumes, it's a greater tier. An interesting thing is 3 tiers seem to be the best choice for if you're doing a tiered model, to have 3 different options. And the option that you want to gear the people to, the reason why you have 3 is you actually try to move them to the middle tier, right? That's the one that you want them to pick, okay? So it's the rule of 3, drive them to the middle tier, and that's where the best value is going to be for you and for the customer. Freemium tiers. This is quite popular as well, where you always have a free tier, right? They can use so much free, and then you hope and you move them up again to the middle tier. You get them hooked and move them. Unit and token-based pricing, this is extremely interesting to me. This is where you have several different APIs, okay? And each API has a different business model, especially in a large enterprise, and if you're trying to sell to large enterprises. If you price them separately, it's quite difficult to go and sell each API separately to a user, because each one is a line item on a purchase order that you have to justify to your procurement systems. Whereas if you go from a token-based model, you say, okay, you buy 4,000 tokens, and you can spend those 4,000 tokens however you like. You can spend it on this API, which costs 6 tokens every time you invoke it, or 6 tokens for every gigabyte of data that you transition through. And it allows you to add new services to your catalog without having to go back to your customer and ask for more money. They just use up their existing tokens faster, and they'll purchase more tokens for you without having to justify the extra features. Transaction fee. This is what you get with Stripe, with PayPal, with Braintree. It's not so much charged for the use of the APIs, it's charged for the use of the service. And they get a percentage of a commission of whatever you're putting through that particular service. You might need a couple of pricing options, because maybe you have really 2 different segmentations. You might have a segmentation that needs a pay-as-you-go model, right? And another segmentation, you might need to have an unlimited, all-you-can-eat type of model. So a lot of times you might have to have 2 different types of business models. Now here's my favorite one: developer gets paid, okay? Because as a developer, it's kind of cool if you can make some money by just coding. So for example, Box. Box enables per-seat revenue sharing. So you can receive up to 15% commission on per-seat price commission if you get a Box subscriber through your app using their APIs. Walgreens, okay? You put a Walgreens photo API on your website, and somebody prints to Walmart and actually goes there and picks it up, buys it, you get a commission of that. The rule is they have to go up and actually pay and finish. But if they've done it through your API, through your website, you get a commission on that. RDO is a radio, has an affiliate program. So you get a recurring revenue every month for as long as a subscriber you recruited remains a subscriber. It's a nice commission model. New business models are created every day, okay? And it's who's ever going to be the most innovative, whoever has their finger on the pulse of how the consumer wants to actually pay for things and what's interesting to them, what's meaningful for them, how they value the service you're offering is going to win. But beware of the complex model, okay? Your users, your developers, your consumers have to be able to understand and read how much it's going to cost them if they use this thing. Another thing is, that's not even part of this, I'm just going to throw it in here. Terms and conditions, oh my God. That you need them, but you have to make them readable so that you don't have to have a lawyer read through your terms and conditions, especially if you're going after that external developer, right? These terms and conditions really need to be readable. One business model doesn't fit all APIs. You might have some APIs that are free. You might have some APIs that you charge for. You might have some APIs you're paying the developer for, okay? You might have some APIs that are targeted just to a partner segment, okay, that only known business partners can go. You're going through your traditional business partner channels. You might have some that are open to the wild, wild west. So you're going to have different business models for your APIs. Reminder, assets will change value over time. You need to understand the value of the API to your business. In the NPR example that I talked about, where they're syndicating news, they had to be very careful for how much of that news article that they made available to that API. I mean, if they gave it all away, then there was no reason to drive people back to the NPR site. So you got to really understand the value of that asset to your company and what it'll do to your company if you put it out externally, especially if you're putting it out for free. You need to understand the value to the developer. Why would they use it? Okay, if you're giving it away, if you're giving your API away for free, how are the developers going to find it, right? Why would they want to use it? How valuable of an asset is it for them? Most importantly, you always have to keep that end consumer in mind. Okay, why would a consumer use an app that was built by the developer that used your API? Why would all that thing work together? I just want to say a couple things. Akana provides a digital platform to help enable you to build your digital business. We provide API management so that the APIs that you put out externally are secure and well controlled. We provide developer portals for easy communication and socialization with your developers. We provide cloud integration so that you can easily orchestrate and create new APIs and secure them and put them out to the developer segment, no matter if your developer segment is internally within your enterprise or if it's external. Finally, we provide security and analytics. So all this information that's going through our digital platform for how your consumers or your developers are using your APIs and the end consumers are interacting with your services, we can analyze that for you to give you real business insights. So Akana can realize the business model that you instantiate, create all of those different licenses that you might come up with gold, silver, bronze, the 3 different tiers. Whatever license model that you have established, we can help realize that and actually enforce that in the runtime around your APIs. And we partner with groups like ARIA to provide the billing and fulfillment of that. With that, I just want to wrap up and say thank you to John Musser. He's done a lot of work around the business of APIs and models, so I've borrowed some of his content and he helped contribute to my presentation. And I've got about 3 minutes. I don't know if you do questions in a general session or not, but I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you. Oh, huh? Okay.
It's much more effective for everybody if you have questions for her to please, when she's finished, talk to her.
Okay, all right.
We want people to deal directly as they can with all of our speakers, and so please feel free to talk to her once she's finished. And go ahead.
All right, well, I'm finished. Thank you very much.